It was meant to be a night of glamour, laughter, and lighthearted fun. Instead, it became one of the most talked-about television moments of the year. Meghan Markle, already no stranger to controversy, walked onto the Graham Norton Show expecting adoration and polite applause. What she received instead was something far more brutal, a verbal roasting from none other than British pop legend Robbie Williams. And if the audience's reaction was anything to go by, Meghan was left humiliated, while her husband, Prince Harry, sat visibly shaken as the crowd erupted in laughter. This was not just a passing entertainment skit. It was a cultural earthquake, a reminder that the British public, and increasingly the wider world, are no longer swallowing the carefully curated royal celebrity narrative that Meghan and Harry have worked so hard to project. Robbie Williams, famous for his quick wit and sharp tongue, delivered what many viewers saw as the ultimate takedown. A raw, unfiltered response to Meghan's sense of entitlement, her self-promotion, and the couple's endless demands to be treated as royalty while simultaneously claiming to reject royal life. The sting of the moment was not only in the words, but in the collective gasp and laughter from the live audience. It was the kind of crowd reaction you can't manufacture. Meghan's facial expression, stiff and visibly annoyed, contrasted sharply with the roaring amusement of everyone else in the room. In that instant, the gap between how Meghan perceived herself and how others perceived her was laid bare for the entire world to see. The first few minutes of Meghan's appearance had gone relatively smoothly. Dressed in a designer gown, she carried herself with her usual air of self-assured confidence. Prince Harry, seated proudly beside her, smirked as though he expected another easy ride on the sofa of British late-night charm. But what neither of them anticipated was Robbie Williams being seated as the other guest that evening, a man who has never been known to tiptoe around delicate egos. Graham Norton, as always, was the perfect host, easing between jokes and anecdotes. The audience was engaged, the laughter flowing. But when the subject of title, status, and the royal family came up, a subject Meghan herself alluded to in one of her answers, Robbie pounced. With a grin and a perfectly timed pause, he turned to Meghan and delivered a line that immediately cut through the carefully constructed image she was trying to maintain. The words were biting, laced with sarcasm and unapologetically direct. The audience roared. Meghan froze. Harry's forced grin faltered. And in that brief moment, the illusion of control slipped through their fingers. What Robbie did that night was not simply crack a joke. He stripped away the protective barrier Meghan and Harry had relied upon in public appearances. The barrier of deference. The barrier of silence. Instead, he reminded the audience, and by extension, millions of viewers, that the couple's demands for royal treatment while living as private celebrities were, frankly, absurd. The fallout of that moment extended far beyond the studio. Social media exploded within minutes of the broadcast. Clips of Robbie's roasting were shared, clipped, and replayed across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Headlines emerged within hours, with phrases like Williams wrecks Meghan and Late Show Smackdown trending globally. What gave the moment its sharp edge was how it validated what many critics have been saying for years, that Meghan and Harry have constructed a persona built not on humility or service, but on entitlement and grievance. The couple had already weathered storms of public opinion following their Netflix docuseries and Harry's memoir Spare. Both projects painted them as victims of an institution that refused to bend to their demands. But Robbie's off-the-cuff remarks managed to communicate what no polished column or critical essay had captured quite so succinctly, that their performance of victimhood had worn thin. Behind the glitz and glamour, the audience saw something raw and real, a rare moment where someone from within the British entertainment world openly challenged Meghan to her face. And it wasn't delivered with malice, but with comedic brilliance. That's why it landed so hard. The laughter wasn't cruel. It was cathartic. It was a release of years of pent-up frustration with the narrative the Sussexes have pushed since leaving the UK. Prince Harry's reaction did little to help. Those who watched closely noticed his body language stiffen, his jaw clench, his posture tightened. Instead of lighthearted amusement, he wore the expression of a man furious that his demands for reverence were being ignored. For someone who has spent the last several years demanding to be treated with royal dignity while simultaneously throwing daggers at his family, the irony was impossible to miss. The cameras caught everything. Meghan's glare, Harry's sulking, Robbie's smug smirk, and Graham Norton's perfectly neutral expression, half amusement, half professional restraint, as he let the moment play out without interruption. The air inside the Graham Norton Show studio thickened the moment Robbie Williams delivered his sting. Meghan Markle, whose carefully crafted public image often dances between victimhood and royal defiance, had walked into an ambush that even she could not have foreseen. Her attempt to charm the audience with anecdotes about resilience and fame were shredded in an instant by Williams' biting remark. It wasn't just a passing joke. It was a cultural moment that left the crowd in uproar, laughter echoing so loudly that the cameras had to pause before resuming. What cut the deepest was that Robbie's jab didn't land in isolation. It tapped into years of mounting criticism. The perception that Meghan and Harry demand royal reverence while simultaneously rejecting royal responsibility. Robbie, who has long built his career on irreverence and fearless commentary, pulled no punches. His words, sharp, unapologetic, and heavy with implication, stripped away Meghan's defenses and placed her squarely in the crosshairs of ridicule. The audience knew it, the producers knew it, and Meghan knew it most of all. Prince Harry, seated just off camera, couldn't hide his visible discomfort. His posture stiffened, his jaw clenched, and his eyes darted across the crowd as though searching for sympathy. But there was none. Every chuckle, every gasp, every roar of applause felt like a direct challenge to his insistence on titles and respect. Robbie had done what many in the royal establishment dared not. Call Meghan and Harry out on the world stage, under the bright lights of prime-time entertainment. What unfolded next only amplified the humiliation. Graham Norton, a master of reading the room, leaned into the moment rather than cushioning Meghan from the blow. He let the silence hang just long enough for the laughter to roll, then cheekily added his own quip, subtle but perfectly timed. The effect was devastating. Meghan's attempt to recover with a forced smile fell flat. The tension between her and Harry, caught by high-definition cameras, painted a picture of a couple increasingly isolated and ridiculed in the very arena they sought to conquer. But this wasn't merely about a celebrity roasting gone wrong. This was about perception, power, and the unraveling of a brand. Meghan had entered the entertainment sphere as someone who wanted to rebrand royalty into a global product. Yet here, on one of Britain's most watched shows, that very product was devalued before millions of eyes. What Robbie accomplished in seconds was something critics and commentators had tried for years. He punctured the illusion. The press wasted no time. Within hours, social media platforms erupted with clips of Meghan's reaction. The hashtag #MeghanRoasted trended across Twitter and Instagram. TikTok users spliced Robbie's remark with archival footage of Meghan's past interviews, creating montages that went viral within minutes. Tabloids seized the moment, plastering headlines that branded her furious, humiliated, and exposed. And as the storm brewed online, Prince Harry's role became impossible to ignore. Rather than defending his wife in a manner that might have salvaged dignity, Harry chose visible sulking and whisper exchanges with producers backstage. His reluctance to confront Robbie, or even Graham, spoke volumes. To critics, it was yet another example of his inability to control the narrative outside the insulated bubble of carefully scripted Netflix specials or Oprah Winfrey interviews. To supporters, it was a sign a man pushed too far, finally confronted with the limits of his influence.